Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Cook Inlet Tug and Barge is a marine transportation company specializing in harbor services with a primary marketing focus on the Port of Anchorage, providing their customers with quality-based service specifically tailored to their needs.
The National Weather Service.
Kuskokwim Valley, mostly to the east and north of Anvik here, 3 to 5 inches of snow over the next, tonight and into tomorrow. So snow advisory there, and then the blizzard warning stayed out all day today up there along the eastern Arctic coast. But that's due to expire at any time, as I noticed visibilities have come up over toward Kaktovik and along the coast there. Wind's still pretty gusty, but those should diminish here this evening. On the satellite, you can see bands of moisture coming southward, continuing there right onto the Arctic coast and coming up to the north slope, giving some areas of clouds and flurries and fog at times, but nothing too heavy. Just those winds hanging on to the east side there throughout the afternoon today, but coming down now and visibility is improving. Otherwise, we had this band lying east-west right along the coast, bringing pulses of snow in across the Cook Inlet area over the Kenai Peninsula into about Portage and Whittier today, and that brought anywhere from 3 to 5, maybe 6 inches of snow in and around the greater Seldovia and Homer area. That's beginning to taper off a little bit this afternoon, but still some more areas of snow back to the west. So even though it's let up, some more may slip on in there this evening, as well as areas up into south central Alaska, and a pretty good system having moved through the southeast coast again. You can see early on here still some rain going on and gale force winds, but those winds have diminished this afternoon. The rain changed over to some rain or snow showers, with still some snow going on up to the north in the form of rain in the warmer air, where it's in the 40s over the southern areas, and some areas over the interior were in the minus 40s below zero today, this afternoon. Earlier, Galena was down to about 40 to 45 below. Same thing in McGrath, with Aros above minus 40 this afternoon. Cold conditions back across the Tanana, Yukon Valley areas over into the border. A little bit milder with that cloud cover pushing southward there over the north slope and the Arctic coast, but those areas still below zero as well. The winds coming down there on the Arctic coast, but still pretty brisk in that narrow area through the strait, and then coming and catching the western portion of St. Lawrence Island. Still have low pressure here, pretty convective low pressure, kind of the broken appearance of the clouds here. Rain and snow showers became mostly snow over the Pribilofs this afternoon. It's kind of back and forth all night last night and this afternoon. Some snow showers also mixed in with the rain at times there across the eastern Aleutians, and then some some snow had actually spread into Kodiak Island at times this afternoon. But this front, as it moved through, brought about a ½ an inch of rain, water equivalent there to the Juneau area, and they've got 3 inches of snow on the ground. So it was a pretty heavy wet snow occurred at least at the lower elevations there, and about a ½ an inch of rain also down over the southern areas at Annette, with no snow there. Some snow showers this afternoon into the Yakutat area, and then the Arctic boundary right in about this position is at 9 a.m. So areas from this front northward seeing a little bit of overrunning condition, west-southwesterly flow aloft there, and that bringing those impulses of snow from Bristol Bay right up into south central Alaska, but not much reaching into Prince William Sound or Cordova or Valdez there, but the winds beginning to kick up through Thompson Pass. Wind chills in the -20s in that area, and no wind chills, but temperatures on the cold side. That's why it's showing up white here in the interior, even though the skies are mostly clear. And then this darker area, the stratus clouds out over the northern Bering Sea. And looking at the chart today, again, that warm front, or for tonight, coming northward here. So drying out a little bit here, possibly over the southern inlet. The main low back here to the west, coming up toward Kuskokwim Bay. So periods of snow continuing out in this area. And again, with the front coming northward, the snow advisory is out for the Kuskokwim Valley. And then kind of a rain or snow condition here hanging on to the northern southeast coast. Drying out a little bit to the south, clear and cold. Again, temperatures over the Yukon Flats could drop down into the -50 to 55 below range possibly tonight, and then extend back out to the west below zero in the 25 to 35 below range back out to the west here. Warmer down in the clouds and snow, and also a little milder up to the north there with still some light snow threatening the west central Arctic coast, but nothing too heavy at all. And snow showers over the Bering Sea with this Arctic front right along the Aleutians there. So periods of light snow, but winds on the light side, not much of a gradient out here at all. It's back up here to the northwest over that portion of the Bering, and pretty brisk southwesterlies here across the panhandle in that 20 gust 30 or 35 range through tonight. And then tomorrow early on, you may see a break come through there, but it looks like tomorrow afternoon, a lot of moisture, strong southwest flow here with this frontal system coming northward. And of course, that's going to spread into Kodiak Island as well. First the snow, change it over to mixed precipitation, eventually over to rain, probably by this time tomorrow evening, with an increase in those winds, this low tracking north-northeast, so that'll continue into tomorrow evening as well. And definitely look for an increase in the wind and rain. Maybe a little fast here, but probably there'll be a period of VFR conditions coming across the panhandle in the afternoon, also into south central Alaska. A little bit lingering light snow from northern Cook Inlet, north to all the way to the Alaska Range up here. And some of that could slip up into the Tanana Valley. Again, the snow advisory is continuing there for the Kuskokwim Valley, right along that frontal boundary, but clear and cold, no change. Winds light up over the interior again. North Slope, Arctic coast, just about light and variable up there with the winds. And this front still out over the Aleutian, so all the cold air back along and north of that frontal zone. So most of the precipitation out here, what does fall, will be in the form of snow, heaviest possibly over the central Aleutians, and then back up to the southwest coast, just some scattered snow showers back to the west. And then the outlook for Tuesday, actually Monday night, early Tuesday, this low tracks due northward. Another one, the original one coming up, moves right up into the Kenai Peninsula here to about this position. Of course, the track this takes will really determine how much snow and where it falls, but pretty good chance of at least some snowfall coming back in to the Kenai Peninsula, south central Alaska area late Monday night and Tuesday again. Otherwise, rain and snow along the North Gulf Coast. Gale force, possibly storm force winds as this low tracks northward. If it tracks off the coast, then you'll probably see some storm force winds for a brief period of time ahead of the front, and then becoming southwest. Looks like southwesterly gales with this gradient here. Rain heavy at times, a lot of warm air getting pulled northward with this system. So whatever starts out as snow will immediately change over to rain as that low center pulls northward there, right up through Lynn Canal and on into the Burwash area, Destruction Bay there. So pretty good shot of wind and rain eventually. Probably the strongest winds will hit the Lynn Canal area from the south. That probably will occur late Tuesday afternoon, definitely by Tuesday evening. Temperatures today range from 25 up here to 39, near 40 down over the southern areas with, of course, the rain down in this area. So snow in 30, snow showers in 30 in Yakutat, 26 over at Cordova, 19 in Anchorage, up to 30 there at Homer, while Kodiak came in with 31, 0 up at Talkeetna, 3 degrees there at Snowshoe Lake, I believe it is, and 8 at Gulkana, then well below 0 north of the mountains there, minus 29 at Fairbanks, 33 below, or 35 below at Fairbanks, and a minus 42 at Bettles, minus 35 over at Arctic Village, and below zero up there along the Arctic coast with Barrow at -15, -8 at Kotzebue. And then Galena, 38 below this afternoon, -1 at Nome, and a little below zero here across the northwest areas. And down along the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, both, Bethel had -6, St. Mary's at -4, 5 above at Macoriac, right at the freeze mark here, both St. George and St. Paul. Alaska at 39 and some rain and snow showers, about the same along the Alaska Peninsula. Mid-30s out over the Aleutians. And the lows for tonight, again, the -40s and 50s up here over the Yukon Valley. Milder back out to the west, say Buckland and Deering, down to 25 below. And 15 to 25 below up here over the north slope in the Arctic coast. About the same, not much of a temperature drop expected at all here along the southwest coast or even over the deltas. Teens to lower 20s for Bristol Bay, lower to mid 30s over the peninsula, the same over the Aleutians, and quite a range here, 20s along the North Gulf Coast to single numbers or teens over the south central area. Upper 20s or mid 20s to mid 30s for the Panhandle. And then highs for tomorrow, look for temperatures range from the lower 40s here around Heidelberg to upper 20s to mid 30s around the Haines, Skagway, Juneau areas. And teens and 20s here over the North Gulf Coast areas, below zero again, Copper River Basin, Tanana Valley, -40s for the highs there over the Yukon Valley. And edging up to near or above zero there at Nome and staying below zero around Kotzebue. St. Lawrence Island below zero, but the Pribilofs upper 20s, and the Alaska Peninsula area here near 40, 30s for the Aleutians. Flying weather tomorrow, again, break VFR probably coming through, and then this stuff will be spreading northward. This is about midday tomorrow, so IFR coming back into Kodiak Island toward the say around noon or into the afternoon. And then again, this will be streaming into the southern southeast coast and then rapidly coming northward the later it gets in the afternoon. The chances this will really be spreading up to the coast by evening. This the leftover band of moisture up in the interior. Could be some IFR around Togiak Bay. Swath of VFR, then a narrow band of marginal stuff here over the Bering Sea or covering the Bering Sea in most areas extending up and along the Arctic coast at times. Some areas will see marginal VFR. I don't think it'll be as solid as what this shows. Be some VFR at times also. Passes, Anaktuvuk definitely will be VFR tomorrow and either approach as well as will be Adigan. And for Lake Clark, marginal conditions improving to VFR before they come back down tomorrow evening. Same thing for Rainy, IFR improving to VFR. Windy, occasionally marginal at times, trending toward VFR late in the afternoon. Isabel, same forecast, but I think Mintasto will stay VFR. Tanita, IFR to start with, and then improving throughout the day. Portage, VFR. And for Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR and improving. Freezing levels at the surface here right along the coastline once again. You can see the big push of warmer air coming up as that low center again begins to pull northward. This whole pattern will pull right northward tomorrow night and into Tuesday, staying chillier back out here to the west. And for icing threats, again, this area moving through the southeast coast tomorrow early on, and then some more spreading up toward Kodiak Island, especially in the afternoon, increasing icing threats there, and then below 7,000 feet of the mixed or rime variety here in areas from the southwest coast right up into the central interior. But this lifting northward of possibly even the Susitna Valley, more up toward the Alaska Range areas, and pretty icing free out here to the west. Upper level wind flow chart showing pretty good jet again, south to north, coming right up across Kodiak Island, that next storm system following the jet right on up, and then the moisture shearing eastward there, spreading the rain back into the southeast coast. Over the southern areas late tomorrow morning, spreading northward throughout the day. The northern area staying under the colder Arctic jet. And for the 9,000 foot winds, southwest 35 knots here. Southern Alaska, light and variable right along the trough axis. Northeasterlies 20 to 25 knots back to the west of the trough, and the southwesterlies right into the Panhandle at about 35 knots. 3,000 feet as that low center comes northward, they kind of bend around more to the southeast, 25 increasing to 30 knots here down toward Lynn Canal. And in southerlies, 35 as this low pulls northward across Kuskokwim Bay. It'll be a narrow band of pretty gusty winds here right along the Alaska Range and just to the east. dropping back to 10 knots behind the system, pretty light in advance of it up here, and then a very weak low up there in the Arctic coast. Not much wind with that at all, and not much wind here over the Aleutians and these northeasterlies back out to the northwest. And for turbulence, again, with those winds along the western Alaska Range, look for moderate chop there along and just to the west of the mountains, but I think they'll stay east of the Kuskokwim Mountains, so it'll be pretty smooth out through this area. Light to isolated moderate up around the Alaska Range there, and then lifting out of the southeast coast, but big area turbulence coming up with the next storm system that'll be spreading north and east late tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night. And after the break, I'll be back to look at the marine forecasts.
General aviation. It's an industry comprised of 650,000 pilots flying over 200,000 aircraft. And the missions of general aviation are as diverse as its pilots and aircraft, and the individuals and businesses that own them. Unfortunately, an unacceptable number of these general aviation aircraft, their pilots and passengers, have succumbed to senseless and often tragic crashes. And the highest percentage of these crashes have been caused by human error, namely pilots making poor safety of flight decisions. What's even more alarming is that the same mistakes are being made over and over again throughout the industry. As you go through this training and watch the scenarios, we suggest that you should concentrate heavily on the error chain depicted in each scenario and how these steps ultimately lead to a crash. Ask yourself, what were the contributing factors? Were there opportunities to break the chain? Did the pilot exhibit a specific safety attitude or value system that might have influenced his decision-making? And were there direct and/or indirect pressures affecting the decisions of the pilot? Now, let's begin the scenarios. Ray owns and operates his own computer consulting business. He has worked hard during the past 8 years owning this business, but it has finally paid off. He was finally able to fulfill his lifelong dream of learning to fly and owning an airplane. For a private pilot with about 250 hours logged, he made a good choice when he bought a used Cessna 172 that was in very good condition and included a radio stack that would allow him to continue on training for his instrument rating. The prospect of being able to use his 172 for business from time to time was also exciting to Ray, and the day to do this had finally arrived. He had an important meeting scheduled for 6 p.m. that evening at his office with one of his top clients. Another client requested a service call for earlier that day in a town that was a 3-hour drive from Ray's office, but only about an hour and 15-minute flight using the 172. So Ray agreed to fly up to this location and perform the service call. That morning, Ray checked the weather and it showed decent VFR conditions prevailed, but the forecast was for 2,000-foot ceilings and 3 miles visibility for his return to his home base, which were exactly what his personal minimums were for flying in daytime VFR. He decided to go. His destination was a busy airport, mixing airline and general aviation traffic, and an airport he'd never been to before. So Ray took a few extra minutes to study the airport runway and taxiway diagrams in order to avoid any runway incursion incidents, finishing preparing himself for the trip, and then filed his VFR flight plan. Ray arrived at his hangar with plenty of time to perform his typical detailed pre-flight of the 172. He started the engine and taxied out for takeoff. After completing his thorough run-up checklist, he was on his way. The outbound flight was enjoyable, especially since his tailwind was much stronger than forecast, and he was making a great ground speed. And Ray's airport preparation also paid off. His arrival went perfectly from his coordination with approach control in the tower to his ground operations into the ramp. Studying those airport charts surely helped. His service call was successful, except for the fact that it took 2 hours longer than he had anticipated to complete. Although he still had enough time to fly back home for his 6 p.m. appointment, his time was now tight, and he had none to spare. Ray arrived back at the airport where the weather still looked good. He elected not to take the time to update his home base weather conditions or file a flight plan for the trip home. After quickly checking his oil, Ray started up for his return flight. After picking up his clearance out of Class C airspace, he taxied out for departure. Following the takeoff and leaving Class C airspace, Ray was on his own. The weather was obviously worsening, and his ground speed was significantly lower than his outbound trip. He was beginning to become very concerned about the weather conditions and about being late for his 6 p.m. appointment. He pressed on, having to continuously maneuver to stay clear of clouds. But that task became more difficult as each minute passed on. At times, he found himself between layers of clouds with no ground contact at all. Finally, as he neared his destination, he spotted a hole and decided this was his chance to duck under the clouds. His descent became rapid, and he worried that he wouldn't break out when he reached his personal minimums of 2,000 feet above ground. But he reasoned that he was in a familiar area and decided that if he was ever going to get into his home field, he had to keep going now. Not having tuned into the ASOS, he was unaware that the weather conditions had diminished even more significantly at his home base field.
Welcome back. Look for southeast winds, lighter up here to the north, picking up down on the south coast. Of course, as the next storm comes northward, up to 25 to 30 knots tomorrow afternoon. Lighter winds, 10 to 20 knots over the inside waters, mostly from the south and southeast. About the same on Tuesday, direction-wise, but look for some gales to move in, at least starting the day, actually tomorrow night. Gales, possible storm force winds, and then that low coming northward. 30 to 45 knots for the most part, but then dropping off later in the afternoon and becoming more westerly. And that low center pulling northward, so these winds up here will be coming west. Again, probably in the afternoon, starting out Tuesday, right out of the east or northeast, and then swinging around. And then the stronger winds will be moving into these northern areas Tuesday evening. For south central Alaska, Cook Inlet, east winds at about 20 tomorrow through Turnagain Arm, and then northeast on the light side for most of Cook Inlet, right down to Shelikof Strait. Still some small craft advisories there. East side of Kodiak Island, and then easterlies 20 to 25 knots up along the coast. Prince William Sound, southeast 15 on Tuesday, then switching direction here. Southwesterlies at about 20 to 25 knots with the small craft advisory level winds here around Kodiak Island. The Barrens only 15 knots from the southwest. And kind of a light variable wind condition here for Cook Inlet. Again, a low center coming right up into this area, so winds will be pretty light and variable. For the Bristol Bay zone, tomorrow southeast 15, southwest 15 to 20 knots along the peninsula, east 20 southwest of Kodiak. And for Tuesday, light variable winds for Bristol Bay, northeast on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, but only 15 knots, and then west southwest up to 25 knots from Sitkinak to Chignik, or maybe even Sandpoint to about that area. For the Aleutians, northeast light winds there in the west, and then some small craft advisories right north in this zone here on the north side of the central Aleutians, but otherwise northwesterlies 10 to 20 for the eastern Fox Islands. And then for Tuesday, excuse me, small craft advisories out in the west, 15 to 20 knots in the central Aleutians, 15 to 25 knots here from the northeast for the Fox Island areas. And up along the southwest coast, north to northwest, 10 to 20 knots, still looking at brisk wind advisories for St. Lawrence Island. Heavy freezing spray here in the St. Matthew Island marine zone, but the winds coming down to 15 or staying light there for the Pribilofs at about 15 from the northwest, picking up to 20 knots here on Tuesday. Same thing along the southwest coast, and then brisk wind advisories from Nunivak Island up in actually all the way to the Bering Strait once again, and still looking at heavy freezing spray as the cold temperatures hang in over the northern Bering Sea. And then for the Arctic coast, light winds from the east or variable to east here on the east side, northeast 10 to 15 to 20 knots. For the western stretch of the coastline, the Chukchi Sea, brisk wind advisories for tomorrow. And the outlook for Tuesday, lighter northwesterlies here, so losing those brisk wind advisories. West to southwest, ahead of a trough that's just off the coast on Tuesday, back out in this area, so that may bring a chance of snow back into the western Arctic coast during the day Tuesday, but light variable winds here on the east side, 5 to 15 knots, and that's about it. For tonight, again, snow advisory here right along this Arctic boundary, along the Kuskokwim River Valley areas, maybe back into the deltas, looking for 3 to 5 inches of snow here along this, lighter amounts to the east, and kind of a mix of precipitation occurring here over the northern southeast coast, but drying out to the south. And then there's a next storm that's going to be coming northward tomorrow, and up in the interior after the cold night tonight, it'll be a cold day tomorrow there, but light winds all the way up to the Arctic coast. Could see some areas of VFR even along the Arctic coast there tomorrow. And then something of a break, this area lifting northward, might be a break coming through, probably will be ahead of this next system coming up from the south, but look for a rapid increase in moisture, lowering ceilings, increasing winds as that comes up tomorrow afternoon. And then that will actually pull northward and weaken quite a bit, bringing another round of snow into south central Alaska, mixed precipitation along the coast, and then other low develops and comes rapidly northward along the coast late tomorrow night and early on Tuesday, and there could be some pretty strong winds with that in the storm force variety ahead of this front as that lifts northward, along with warm air and rain heavy at times. Otherwise, some leftover moisture with the first washing out front here now up into the northeast interior, so that's going to bring those temperatures up with the increase in the cloud cover there, but staying dry along the Arctic coast, except for this trough back out to the west. That might bring a chance of some flurries in, lower flying conditions, but southwest breezes there will probably keep it VFR on the east side. Let's look at the weather. Thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.